I'm joined now by All Rise News' Adam Klasfeld. Adam, you are outside of the courtroom where the Trump administration is attempting its second go to take down Letitia James, the New York Attorney General. In their first effort, that case was dismissed because they had an improperly appointed prosecutor, Lindsay Halligan. Can you explain what happened in court today and what this case is regarding?
So I am standing right now in front of federal court in snowy Albany, New York. It is actually snowing where I am right now, where what is happening is that Letitia James, just an hour or so ago, her attorneys were in federal court to quash a grand jury subpoena by another Trump appointed loyalist, former campaign lawyer named John Sarcone, who opened a different grand jury investigation where he sent two subpoenas to the office of Letitia James, hoping to rummage through her case files to see whether by filing two successful lawsuits when she sued Trump, his family members, and his business empire, and successfully brought a civil fraud case, and when she brought a successful lawsuit against the NRA, whether that amounted to a civil rights investigation. So, what happened in court just behind me was a federal judge is considering whether to quash those subpoenas on the grounds that John Sarcone, like Lindsay Halligan, and like three other U.S. attorneys appointed by Trump, was unlawfully appointed. So, if she agrees that John Sarcone was unlawfully appointed, she could quash those subpoenas that were written under the title acting U.S. attorney and disqualify John Sarcone from the case and from that office.
Adam, even if this prosecutor was properly appointed, which it doesn't sound like he was, but even if he was, what's the statute on which they're trying to get this thing pushed forward? I mean, it sounds like they're taking issue with the fact that Letitia James targeted politicians who had engaged in wrongdoing. That doesn't strike me as being illegal.
Right. You know, they are trying to turn two successful cases into a possible federal civil rights violation, that she was arguably violating the rights of the NRA when she found and a jury agreed that the NRA was wasting donor money under New York charity law. And that when a judge agreed that the Trump organization, Trump and his children, were artificially inflating statements of financial condition by billions of dollars. The idea behind this grand jury probe is that all of that was somehow some sort of civil rights violation against Trump's rights or the NRA's rights. And so she is fighting for these grand jury subpoenas on multiple grounds. The only one being heard today is that John Sarcone is not a legitimate prosecutor, but someone who Trump installed in this office for that purpose, just like as happened with Lindsay Halligan.
Is there a world where the judge says, yes, this prosecutor was improperly appointed, and so, we're going to dismiss this case because of that, but also this case is completely baseless on the merits, and so we'll dismiss it with prejudice so that it can't be brought, because even if there was a properly appointed prosecutor, there's no grounds to bring this case anyway?
So I want to make clear, this case has not been filed. It's an investigation that he started. I think what's more likely to happen, Brian, is that this will follow the path of what we saw in the Eastern District of Virginia, where if she decides that John Sarcone is improperly appointed, then and disqualifies him, then he's out. This particular subpoena will be quashed. And if someone legitimately tries to do it from this office, then we'll see those other questions. Then we'll see vindictive prosecution. Then we'll see there's no basis for a prosecution if a grand jury even agrees to it. Now, let me even clarify further. We call these grand jury subpoenas, but John Sarcone didn't even bring these before a grand jury. These were just his signature. So this is basically the atom of an investigation. This is something that hasn't gotten off the ground, and the judge is going to find essentially whether to kill it in the cradle, because there is no lawful prosecutor who is bringing these subpoenas, and that she could find he cannot be involved in this
Well,
case.
to that point, is there a world where the Trump administration can just say, okay, this prosecutor was improperly appointed, fine, we'll just find some other prosecutor who has been properly appointed to sign their name on this thing, and we'll just continue to push it forward? Or is the problem that they needed to find some prosecutor that was improperly appointed because they couldn't find a legitimate one who was willing to sign their name on the indictment?
It could be a little bit of both right there, because that's what we're seeing in the Eastern District of Virginia. No one would touch that case, either of the cases against James Comey or Letitia James. They thought that it couldn't have been brought. And one of the arguments that came up in court today is, why didn't they do that here? There would be no argument based on improper appointment if a line prosecutor or someone who is qualified to sign those subpoenas did so. The fact that they didn't do that, the fact that Trump keeps installing acting and interim U.S. attorneys who cannot get Senate confirmation or the approval of the judges of the district, is what keeps bringing us here. At one point during the oral arguments, the judge basically cued Letitia James's lawyers to put it in the big picture. She said, "What's the big deal if it's the wrong name on the form?" And the Letitia James's lawyer said this: "The appointments clause is important. It is part of the separation of powers. This is not a mere technicality. The Supreme Court has said that," because that's what this is about. This is about Trump installing former personal attorneys
Yeah.
in his position to carry out his agenda, because the real prosecutors, so the serious prosecutors, aren't touching these cases. And that's what this is about. Is John Sarcone illegitimate? And if so, is that why he's the person pushing this when no one else in his office will? And one final point I'll say on this subject, the Northern District of New York U.S. Attorney's Office, after his legitimate term expired, the temporary appointments can last 120 days. After it expired, the judges in the building behind me did not. They declined to extend his appointment. And that's very rare, or at least was rare before Trump 2.0, and it's happening frequently. And it's why these hearings keep happening.
Right. We just found out about Alina Habba being in the exact same situation in New Jersey. When the court asked the Trump team why they don't just bring a legitimate prosecutor, why do they continue to put forward these improperly appointed prosecutors, what did the Trump team say?
They just keep on with the arguments about that it's somehow legitimate, that he can be described as, for example, a special attorney. You had the same playbook happening in the Lindsey Halligan case, where Attorney General Bondi takes after the fact, signs a letter and decrees the person a special attorney.
Right.
You mentioned the Alina Habba case. That's exactly what the Third Circuit rejected. They said you can't end run the requirements of advice and consent of the Senate. You can't end run the Federal Vacancies Reform Act and just say, you're a special attorney and we can delegate it and you can act just like a U.S. attorney and hold that position indefinitely. That's just what the Third Circuit rejected. So all of the precedent is on the side of the New York Attorney General here. And she pointed out, every judge who has considered this question has ruled in favor of those challenging the appointment of the U.S. attorney. And I don't think that there's going to be an exception in this case.
Was the New York Attorney General in the courtroom today?
She was not. And notably, who was not in the courtroom either was John Sarcone. And that was a notable absence. It's his position that's on the line here, and he didn't show up. And I think that absence in particular speaks volumes.
And finally, last question here. When can we expect some ruling on this issue?
It's hard to say. The judge did not indicate one way or another, but she has a lot of precedent on her side here. I think that she certainly could rule quickly if she wants to, but I'm sure she understands, as happened in all of the other cases, everything is going to be appealed to the bitter end. So I think that she's a very careful judge, appointed by Barack Obama from the Southern District of New York, very respected judge. I think she's going to take her time on this one. So we'll just have to look out for the opinion.
I need folks who are watching right now to know that Adam started All Rise News as an independent legal outlet. He is flying all around the country, including upstate New York right now on his own dime. He's not backed by some major media conglomerate. This is true independent journalism. So for those who are watching right now, if you appreciate Adam's work, if you want to show some support for Adam's work, the best way to do that is to subscribe to All Rise News. I'm going to put the link to that website right here on the screen and also in the post description of this video. Adam, thank you for being there. Thanks for taking the time today, and go back to somewhere warm, because like from where I am in Los Angeles, that is absolutely unacceptable. So thanks again for taking the time.
Thank you, Brian. Always a pleasure.